I wanted to go over a couple of notes. I think it's really telling about the situation we're looking at today. And the best way to look at that is, let's look back in time. How many people knew? We all know that there are more voters in an election year than a midterm. I think everybody knows that. We've heard that over and over, because we are told that over and over again. Did anyone know that, by show of hands, anyone know if that ever changed, if it was ever reversed? Guess what? I didn't even know that either. I didn't know that until I looked it up because I was preparing for this discussion today. And actually, from 1789 until 1840, every single midterm election had higher turnout than the presidential. Every single election. And you know why? Because the midterms are more important than the president. Because the midterms are our selection of the people who are going out there to put our words into that floor of Congress. They're the person who's going to make these laws get written and enacted. And while the president has a purpose, absolutely, of directing the general direction of the nation, God help us, President Obama is almost gone. But, and that's my personal opinion, but while he may be steering the ship, it's our elected officials, the congressmen, the senators, everyone straight down to local government. They actually create and enact and enforce the actual laws. He may be guiding us. They're actually doing the little details about rowing that boat. And they do that because we tell them, you're going to go in and you're going to do it. And if you don't do your job, we will get rid of you. And from 1789 to 1840, that is exactly what we did. And that was the most important thing that we could do. And they all knew it. But after 1840, we started to see that everything shifted. And all of a sudden the presidential race became far, far more important. And with the president, his leadership became more of a more grand issue than who we have leading the nation. Now, I think we've also all heard that the turnout rates for elections really, really low. We all know that. And we know it's under 50%. Anyone have any idea the last election, the last midterm election, that had more than 50% of the population actually voted? A midterm election. The last time of 50% or more in a midterm election. 1914. 1914 was the last time. Currently, we get numbers about 39 to 41% in a midterm election. 1 out of 4 people, if you're lucky, show up in a midterm election to decide who is going to guide this country, create the laws, and do your bidding. Listen to you and do what you want in Congress. Or be replaced if they can. That's incredible. As a matter of fact, I actually did the numbers and the averages. Just going from 2000. From 2000 to 2015. The average number of people who show up for a presidential election, 58.5% of the nation. 58.5% of the nation. Just barely half of us.
Of the registered voters.
Of the registered voters, yes. And for the midterms, 39.2. That's incredible. Now that's really incredible. Now there's a great example I like to give people when we talk about this. And when people tell me, well, politicians aren't paying attention. Okay. Well, let's start with the numbers. 6 out of 10 people don't vote, which means your voice doesn't count because you have no voice. You didn't vote. Whether it's in a primary or the election, you didn't vote. You don't count. So their voice, gone. That means that politician's paying attention to 4 people. out of those 4 people, one's making donations. On average, about 10%. One person out of those 4 is making a donation. Now, when we do these numbers, that politician has to prioritize. Who am I going to pay attention to first? Is he paying attention to the 6 people who don't care what happens? Because they didn't vote, so they don't care. No, they're meaningless, they're gone. Out of the 4 people he does have to pay attention to, only one of them gave him money to get elected or re-elected. So he either owes them favors, or more importantly, he wants to be re-elected. He wants more money for his next campaign, to get commercials, to get the flyers out, to tell people what they need to do. Where's he going to get that money from? There's only one person he can go to for it. Who gets the first priority? That one person. Everyone else falls into the next group of, I'll get to you next. When we say that our government is messed up, that our politicians aren't listening to us, what we're really saying is, we're not paying attention. We're not doing enough. Collectively. Again, not any one person. All of us. That includes me. I ran for Congress, and I put myself in that category first and foremost. I'm not doing enough. I'm not getting the word out enough. I'm not encouraging enough people. I'm not involved enough. Because obviously, we don't have enough people getting out there to vote. And I say this to encourage us all. Because the greatest way to encourage someone is to tell them how bad things are. I've never seen anyone more motivated in my life to jump into a pool of water than the person who's burning. If he was on fire, he will jump into that pool of water. Do you know how to swim? Doesn't really matter. I'm jumping into the pool. You want to see someone really sprint? Put a rabid dog behind them. They will fly. I don't care what your reason is. You're moving. Silly examples. But it's not. The extremity of the situation is that we have a nation that is categorically beginning to slide. Our nation is losing its ground. And I can say that because, and I'm going to go back to my favorite, Andrew Cuomo, and mention what he said on January 17th of 2014. He said, and I quote, "Their problem isn't me and the Democrats. Their problem is themselves. Who are they? Right to life, pro-assault weapons, anti-gay. If that's who they are, they have no place in the state of New York, because that's not who New Yorkers are." Who gave Governor Cuomo the power to say that? He has decided who is a class of people in New York State. He has decided who deserves to have rights. He has decided who has the priority of rights and who's going to be listened to. He has decided by himself how the people are going to be governed. He's a governor. He answers to us. We elect him. He has a term only as long as we allow him, or if Preet Bharara has his good graces, until we catch him in corruption that many of us are sure that he's done. So, he doesn't get to say that. We're in America. We choose where we want to live. No one can force us out of there. How many laws do we have to protect people in their housing, to make sure that no one can ever dare tell you, you can't move there, you can't buy a house there? How dare someone stop you from living there? We have lots of laws about that. And yet we have a politician who is telling us, apparently in violation of those laws, you don't need to be here in New York, get out, because you don't agree with me. So much for the First Amendment. By the way, the First Amendment, I just want to throw this in there for a second, because it's a pet peeve of mine, and something that a lot of people, a lot of younger people seem to misunderstand. The First Amendment does not protect the speech we like. Never. That is not the purpose of the First Amendment. The freedom of speech is to protect the language we don't like. It is to protect the ideas we don't agree with. I will stand up any day of the week and I will fight for the right for a member of the Ku Klux Klan to go out and protest and spread his view or their view of the world. Because I also, at that very same moment, want to exercise my right to stand a reasonable distance away and protest and explain how stupid that thought is. But it's because we both have the right to speak. We don't agree with each other. It's not that I have the right idea, therefore my rights should be protected. It's because we both have a view and we are protected to give those ideas out. But when we hear people like Andrew Cuomo say, no, you can get out because you don't agree, because that's not who we are. President Obama always likes to use that as well recently. That's not who we are as Americans. How dare you? We are Americans. We are individuals. We are different. And the First Amendment allows us to be different. But again, it goes back to the same theme of this speech, which is they get away with that because we now have this idea they lead the country and tell us where to go. And with that thought, they can tell us, well, you don't think right, so go away. Which is only one half step away from the thought, well, you're not thinking right. Go to that concentration camp. It is the same process. It is the same thought. Whether it happens today or not, or if it happens in 20 years, it's the same principle. And this is why it's so important. This election on the federal level, we're going to decide a president. That president is going to be able to pick four Supreme Court justices. We know that Justice Scalia, God bless him, died recently. Justice Kennedy is 79. Justice Ginsburg, 83. Justice Breyer is 77. That's 4 seats. The next people that, our next president, probably in the next 4 years, will have 4 Supreme Court choices to put out there, which will decide everything in our nation, including all the questions that are coming up now about the First Amendment, and trying to decide, well, what does the First Amendment mean? Because the PC movement, the safe spaces movement, would have you believe it's there to protect the thought they like, when it's in fact about protecting the thought you don't like. And if we have 4 Supreme Court justices that believe it's protecting the thoughts we like, I guarantee you're going to see safe spaces in every single business in America. We're going to have the most coddled, useless government, people, army, and shortly after that, no more America. Because people can't stand up and say, when life is happening to them, and they can't say, let's tough through it. If they can't do that without saying, I need to go to a safe space, they can't take care of protecting their own nation. And someone will take it away from them. So this is why it's important and why I want to speak about our votes and being involved from the primary all the way through to the general election to support the candidates we believe in. Because when we do that, we have our voice and our voice is active. And they are afraid, the establishment, because they can't control people who are not willing to be controlled. They can easily control anyone who doesn't care. 6 people aren't paying attention. They've got complete control over that. Takes a 30-second soundbite, a little message on Twitter, and they're all taken care of. They don't care about them. They've given up on them. Because those people gave up on themselves. Let's turn that around. Let's make that number 6 out of 10 are actually voting in a primary, getting involved in the election, finding out who the candidates are, asking questions, and then going to the general election as informed voters and saying, hey, I actually know why I should vote for this person or the other. And it's not because of that 30-second commercial they had, but because I actually looked at their voting record. I actually looked at what the speeches they made when they showed up on YouTube. I'll give you a great example again. I like examples because it makes it easy for everybody. It just makes it so solid for us. New York 22nd race. Right now, there are, well, 6 candidates. A couple of candidates are getting kicked off the race. Okay. We have 2 elected officials. By the way, does anyone know who's in the race? Okay.
6.
I'll tell you all of them.
George.
I look at them all. So right now we have David Gordon and legislator Kim Myers. Kim Myers, those are both the Democrats. David Gordon most likely is going to be kicked off the race very shortly, actually tomorrow. So you have 1 Democrat.
Why?
Petitions. He went out, he got his petitions, the petitions are challenged. He's most likely going to lose enough of the petitions to fall under the 1,250 petitions requirement, and he's going to be out the race. That's the rule, it's always been a rule, there's always been that requirement, and all the candidates know that. Same number for Democrats as Republicans, so it's not like the presidential different numbers. Same number. And he missed. Okay, so he's out. There's a gentleman, Martin Babinek, who's running on the independence line. By the way, that's not independent. If you're an independent, you're not part of the Independence Party. It's a totally separate party. A lot of people mistake that. If you don't have a party, you don't have a party. If you're an independent, you don't have a party in New York State. But if you join the Independence Party, then you have a party. Very different. A lot of people confuse that. They get lots of votes just because of that reason. Mr. Babinek, that candidate is Martin Babinek, who's from Oneida County. He's a millionaire, multimillionaire, and he's out of the race. He got kicked out. Petitions. He had non-voters going around, non-registered voters going around getting petitions, which violates the rules. And I have to say, if you're not able to, if you can't follow the basic rule of only registered voters can go out and get these petitions, and you hire non-registered voters to go get these petitions, if you can't follow that detail, how are you going to do in Congress? What details are you going to forget there? How is that going to affect people? But we're lucky because he's out the race. Next brings us to the Republicans. Now the Republicans, there was a Mr. Aaron Price. He's out the race. He didn't make the petition quota. George Phillips, which is from Broome County, there's some things going there that I've done some research on, not public yet. I don't think he's going to survive the challenge. He'll probably be kicked out of the race. So he's gone. That leaves Claudia Tenney, who's an assemblywoman from up north, and I personally do support her. But that's not important for what we're speaking about now, but I just want you to know that. And there's also another gentleman, Steve Wells, another multimillionaire who lives in Madison County, and he's running for the race. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And there is also, excuse me, I don't want to leave him out, David Passek, who's with the Libertarian Party, and he's in the race too. I didn't want to leave him out. He doesn't have a primary yet. His primary comes in June, just the way the system works. Now, just looking at the 2 Republicans for a second. We have Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney. We have Mr. Steve Wells, a private businessman. Steve Wells has a bunch of commercials. You've probably gotten a bunch of flyers from him if you're Republicans, saying he's a great guy, he supports the Second Amendment, vote for him. Does anyone who's a Republican or anyone know anything else about him? Yeah.
Just what I got in yours.
Okay. Now there's also Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney. She has a record. Has anyone heard of her before?
Yes.
Okay, a couple people have heard of her. Here's the difference between the 2. She has a record. We know what she does. We have Mr. Wells. He doesn't have a record. We don't know what he does. We now have to decide between these two people. Do 30-second sound bites in a commercial, and I'm not saying this to make the decision today, but I'm using this as an example. Do 30-second sound bites on a commercial or a flyer in your mailbox outweigh a record without anything else influencing it? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But what are we seeing in the history of our government right now? In our people? That's what it is. That's terrifying. So what if, and I'm not saying that this is true of Mr. Wells, but what if Mr. Wells is, I don't know, well, let's actually deal with reality. Let's say that Mr. Wells, you vote for Mr. Wells. You want to support Mr. Wells because he supports the Second Amendment. Okay? Then that's what he says in his flyer. Would your opinion change if you knew that he's given money to Governor Andrew Cuomo, who created the SAFE Act, which is taking away your Second Amendment rights? Is that a disconnect for anyone? Maybe. Is it something you should probably know about? Absolutely. Is he discussing that? No. You know why? Because 6 out of 10 people don't care. They're not even voting. They don't matter. Out of the 4 people, one's giving him money to get that ad out there. He's got his support. There's 3 people who have to know about it, and some do and some don't. Whatever their final decision is about it, you should at least know. But that means we have to be involved. We have to ask. We have to ask these candidates, come out, put it on your website. Come out, have a debate, do interviews with the press, come out and speak to the people, and let them have that opportunity to find out why. Why are you supporting the very same person who's restricting my Second Amendment rights, but you say you're for the Second Amendment? And I'm picking on him right now, because that's a pet peeve of mine. But you can find similar things in many candidates. This is the power that you have. Because then you decide who goes to Congress, you decide who goes to the presidency, you decide who picks those Supreme Court justices, you decide which laws get passed that are going to affect you every day, whether or not you pay attention. Those 6 people are being affected by every single law every day, whether or not they pay attention to it. The 4 that are paying attention are going to be affected just the same. The one who paid in the money is going to be affected just the same. We're on the same footing. Law affects us all the same way. But not every law is made equally. Some laws are made to help certain people. But I wanted to make that point to let everyone know, and just give you some insight on how important it is and how much of an impact you have. I'll, of course, always take questions, and you have one.
No, my question